probably the toughest session of any conference. That's a post-lunch session, that on a second day. But I'm sure that the agenda is good enough for all of us to be attractive, to be attentive, because we have now two, three sessions which are very important for the education ecosystem, be it school education, higher education, or skill education, and along with the importance of technology innovation. We have a special presentation now, which will be followed by a very important panel discussion on industry-academia collaboration, identifying the next milestone. And I can say that panel will have the eminent education thought leaders from the centers of excellence across the country. I would like to invite Mr. Manoj Verma, National Sales Head of Fortinet, who's taking care of the government vertical. Mr. Manoj Verma, you can come on stage, please. A huge round of applause for him, please. He'll be sharing a presentation with us, but before I hand over the session to him, just to give a perspective about APAC News Network. APAC News Network was formed in 2020 June. We are focusing on creating awareness on the importance of technology and innovation for governance, education, healthcare, enterprise, BFSI sector, and also the startup ecosystem. In last 2 years, we have done 100+ outreach programs, both in virtual form and physical form, where we have engaged at least 20+ states, 15+ ministries in Government of India, and more than 1,000 CXOs from various sectors, be it from healthcare, education, and BFSI sector, and at least 500+ education thought leaders have been engaged with us through our offerings. We have got 4 to 5 offerings. One is APAC News APACnewsnetwork.com, the main knowledge portal, which highlights news and information on innovation and technology for all these sectors. As I mentioned earlier, our outreach program in terms of events, physical events, virtual webinars, roundtables, and also we are making films for various embassies, various ministries, also digital outreach program for various organizations, and we are the official partner of Ministry of Jal Shakti for their landmark Kazarin campaign, which was initiated by the Honorable Prime Minister last year. Kazarin campaign is now part of Jal Shakti Abhiyan Part 2. In our corporate video, you can see the glimpses of Honorable Prime Minister speaking. That was actually the launch of Jal Shakti Abhiyan Part 2, which was hosted by APAC News Network along with NIC. And we are also the digital marketing partner, if I may say so, for, again, Minister of Jal Shakti and Namami Gange for their various activities. And we're doing the same with various state government departments across India. So this is in a nutshell what we have been doing for the last 2 years. And I'm again thankful to all of you for joining us for our endeavor in the education field. With this, I would like to request Manoj Verma, National Sales Head Government, Fortinet, to give his presentation. A huge round of applause for him, please.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Manoj Verma. So I manage the government business for Fortinet. So, So before I start, I am sure you guys are all aware that how important today the cybersecurity has become in our day-to-day life. So let me start with a small story. There's a very renowned college which was in the name of Abraham Lincoln, which is based out of in Illinois in the USA. So which was founded in 1865, right? It has been a very, very popular college among the US. And today, in May 2022, that college is getting shut down in parts because of the cybersecurity attack of ransomware, and college is into a big, big mess. So today, the scenario is such that though all the campuses or all the renowned institutions like IITs, IIMs, and the NITs and colleges do work on a very aggressive mode on the cybersecurity side of it. The network infrastructure is really fabulous today in the campuses. There's no doubt about it. But at the same time, the concerns of cybersecurity carries on. So I just wanted to list down certain statistics, which is from the global arena. So 70% cybersecurity officials were surveyed, and 70% confirmed from the European education sector that they have been attacked or under attack or have threats to the cybersecurity side of it. Similarly, if you see the educational establishment, 615% has been incremental side on the cybersecurity attack. 44% of almost 500 educations, almost worldwide, have been hit with various ransom attacks or malware attacks or any kind of cyber security attacks. So if I talk about India, so India is also not far behind, right? And Indian tops global cyber attacks on education sector because it's a very soft sector, right? We have a vast type of users available in this sector, which covers the various, applications within the campus, right? So India's education witnessed most number of cyber attacks in July, right? Mumbai University's distance education exam was hit because of the cyber attack, right? Cyber attacks hits over 1,000 school colleges between June and September. Obviously, our people are now used to the remote classroom services. The attack is there, right? Indian education sector biggest target of cyber threats, remote learning among key triggers. Right? Ransomware attacks are hitting universities hard and they are feeling the pressures. So many cases are not even reported, right? So even if the attack happens, so many cases are not even reported by the people out there just to, safeguard their basically image in the public. So a US, a major US cybersecurity threat analytics organization has confirmed that 18 million cyber attacks, India has witnessed over 18 million cyber attacks. So which is huge actually, right? So a typical, a campus network of every college, university is where you have a gateway security, a core switch would be there, a tier would be designed, whether it is a tier 2 network or a tier 3 network, right? But what is the major threat today? The major threats today is the internal users, the BYOD, the external users, right? The wireless access points, what students are, accessing, what policies has been defined by the institute, how secure these policies are there. That is the main areas of, concerns. So this is a basic network which is, used by any of the campuses out here. So if what I was talking about, so today the major threat, what you have in any campus is primarily these areas. I'm sure you would agree with me on this. So the key security challenges, what I see today is recognizing that you are a target. Most of us do not even know that we are being hacked, or we have already been hacked, or we are being hacked, right? So that is a very, very core area which people do not actually understand. Similarly, we are able to, failure to, improve or educate our students what has to be accessed, what is the security policies being defined in the campus. That is very, very primary area which is actually missing into in the education area, right? So database breaches, okay? So that is a very, very strong area. If you see any of the campus today, I would hardly find any of these campus where they are designing their security network in such a manner that their database, their core application is secure. WAF is missing part, right? So that is another important area, which is missed out by our campuses, right? Then the ransomware attacks, okay? So that is very crucial. Then missing security patches. We must update our devices very frequently, timely, with all the security updates and patches, which keeps coming by the respective OEMs, right? Bring your own device. We need to design a policy, we need to have a network, we need to have a cybersecurity infrastructure which takes care of your BYOD, right? So the identity access manager is the most important part which is missing from the education campus. I'm not saying everywhere, but it is. Losing sight of the backup plan. So the most important part is our data. We must, have to plan our database backup on a weekly basis or maybe on an alternatively basis. That is this is the biggest challenge, which again is a missing out. Then lack in campus security programs, right? So the policies, the SOP for the security side of, that is another area which is a very important factor in the campus side of it. Then you're treating the cybersecurity not as an IT problem today, but it is a financial issue, right? If any data breach happens, if any attack on the security on the institution happens, it will be a major financial loss. Apart from the image loss is already there, but a financial loss would be the major side of it, right? Then lack of proactive plans, okay? So that today, the network which we design, we find we are buying a firewall, we are buying a switch, we are buying a distribution switch, we are buying an access switch, but where is the plan to make it secure, make the network secure, make the accessibility secure, ensure that the right user is accessing the network, right? So the major types of attacks, what has been observed today for any campuses is primarily the phishing, right? The human factor, the DDoS attacks, malware attacks, form jacking, fileless attacks, application vulnerabilities, and attack on your IoT devices. Today, IoT devices has becoming popular within our campuses, and that is again a very vulnerable devices, which is from the cybersecurity attack, right? Whether it is your access points, maybe your biometric scanners, whatever it is, but it is available. So what is the vision of my organization, right? So Fortinet, which is our core bread and butter, is the cybersecurity side of it. Today, I have a vast, product line in my, range where we give to our customer for securing their campuses, securing their network side of it, right? So we have been a leader in the next generation firewall side of it. But today, Fortinet has, ventured into various strong platforms like web application firewall. We have got our own Ethernet switches. We have got access points, right? We got our load balancers out there. So we have got variety of 54 range of products. We got SIM, we got SOAR, we can, provide you managed services based of SOC, on-premises based of security operation centers and all. So we have got certain unique features which we have, understood basis our experience in this industry for good many years, basis the concerns which we have seen within the campuses, which we have observed out there. So that is where we talk about, adopt a comprehensive security approach, right? Which gives you a complete awareness within the digital surface. That is how your network is working. Protect against the sophisticated threats. So your signatures, your updates, your network should be designed so that multiple platform is there to secure you. Right? Simplifying the compliance. The compliance should be simpler. The user should not be, having a trouble in honoring the compliances within the campus networks, right? And adopt an intelligent and a secure way to, the architecture should be, sophisticated enough, which is easily manageable, secure, and gives you the required results. The performance should not be affected, right? So that is where the Fortinet, is popular and the strong and is renowned within the industry. And a lot of adaptability is there because we talk about is the convergence of our networking and security. So give you a small example, right? Like my Ethernet switches, right? I give you a plain L2 switches, but when it is connected with my next generation firewall, it becomes a L3 switch. Whatever secure policies you're putting up on my next generation firewall is being taken control by the L2 switch also. At every port, I'm giving you that security, right? So that is what is the conversion side of it is, okay? Similarly, on the wireless side of it, my next generation firewall is again a complete secure box, which comes with a built-in UTM features, complete UTM features with built-in WLAN controller out there. And it gives you a complete, single box solution with a, analytics and management control on a single dashboard solution. So that is how we, work out on the conversion side of it. Other conversion side of it is the identity access manager. You must know what is your user doing in the network, which user is accessing the network. So that is a very, very crucial area which we talk about, right? So today, the missing part in any campus network is controlling the endpoints, right? Any campus, if I talk about, would be having anything from maybe 3,000 to maybe 5,000, 6,000 endpoints, right? Apart from that, students are using their mobile phones, they're using their tablets, they're using their laptops, which is not owned by the university, but owned directly by the student. So how are you going to plan your network so that you are able to secure that, right? So that user must be authorized within the network. How you're going to monitor that, whether he's a guest user, whether he is an appropriate user, how you're going to track what he's accessing, how he's going to, what he's delivering in the network, what kind of websites he's accessing. So these are many, many factors which are very, very important for any campus network side of it, which Fortinet helps you to design over their single fabric-based solutions. So we have the next generation firewall, we have got the web application firewall for your application side of it, we got load balancers for your server side of it so that the performance can be initiated. Your identity access manager is out there for managing your users, right? So that is how a fabric or an integrated solution which we deliver out there. Then the zero-day attacks, right? So the DDoS attacks. So these are certain areas which are very, very crucial for any campus network while we are designing these campuses actually. So again, if these are all integrated with each other, so that gives you a single dashboard management console. So my management able to manage the entire devices across these networks. So that is a ease of comfort zone what your computer center head departments or your IT team would have to manage the entire network. You would be able to manage the policy of every user. You can segregate the policies basis the teaching staff would have a separate, general staff would have a separate, students would have a separate. You can prioritize the traffic basis these policies actually. So that is where you get the advantage of a single fabric integrated solutions out there. And that is where I feel any of the HODs out here would understand that how important it is, because you would be having so many OEMs already in place in your network, but managing each OEM, configuring each OEM, it becomes so difficult, at times, because you'll have to shell out a lot of money in terms of, renewing of these licenses, then arranging a resource to manage these kind of networks, right? So that is the crucial. So that is the advantage what today Fortinet brings in for you. So if I talk about our, the key pillars, what we talk about is the control and protect everyone, right? So that is our priority. So if you see out there, so we are managing the employee side of it. We are managing you can manage with the same network architecture, the people who are working remotely or students accessing their applications and data from work from home, right? The campus is spread out. You have residential areas, you have multiple buildings, you have multiple labs spread out across in your campuses, which can be monitored and which can be taken care of. Then the speed operations, right, and the artificial intelligence built into it. So my security side of it, the SOC, right? So these are certain solutions which has a beautiful AI built into it. The threat analytics is built into it, which gives you the alert much on the priority. If there is any kind of, user behavior analysis which is done there, and if there is any anomalies is find out there. So that is where you are getting the alerts much, much before. So that is how we have designed our network side of it. So our anti-APT solution, same source side of it, covers all those factors. Then counter threats. So my threat intelligence, we have got labs spread across the world, right? And where we are doing a lot of analytics side of it, which gives us prior in advance what could be the threats, the signatures, creations, and all those stuff. So that is what we are covering. Secure any application on the cloud. Now, that is a very, very important part in the solution what Fortinet today gives you is, my solution is not only available on premises, it is available over the cloud also. So if today, if any IIT or any NITs or IIMs or any university, which has a lot of affiliated colleges along with them, we can help you to build up a secure private cloud for you. And your entire users, whether the student or your remote colleges or your remote hostels or people, can actually come into a complete private cloud for the particular college itself. your ERP, your campus financial management solutions, your applications, your research, your library, everything available over a secure private cloud for all the users out there. So that is what the advantage of single fabric solution, what Fortinet brings you on the table. So with seamless end-to-end security interwoven throughout the entire higher education environment, you can actually balance your security and your network, and which gives you a complete clear-cut picture what is happening in your network, how secure it is. So that is an advantage what Fortinet delivers to you. And in the last, I would also like to highlight on the Fortinet Network Security Academy, wherein we train your students on the cybersecurity side of it. And I would request that this is a very strong platform, and we would be sending you the details of all this platform, which can be very, very useful for the students, because we are not only giving them the cybersecurity training side of it, but this cybersecurity training can be very, very useful for them in their career purpose also, because we will be giving them the certifications also. So that is where that can be an advantage. And we have got multi-layering, certification where students bases their capability of technical understanding, scripting, or he's, intelligent on the cybersecurity side of it. He can go for advanced certifications also, where Fortinet would support him. So that's all from my side. So any questions, I would be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Manoj Verma, National Sales Head of Government of Fortinet, for sharing with us the technology vision by Fortinet in terms of cybersecurity and how it can help the Education Institute. I request Mr. Rajneesh Dey, consulting editor of APAC News Network, to come on stage and hand over a token of appreciation to Mr. Manoj Verma. Huge round of applause for him, please. With this, we move to the next session, a very important session on industry, academia, partnership. What are the opportunities? What are the areas where industry and academia can partner? And it's not often that we can see that the directors of IITs, IIMs all sitting together for a panel. So huge round of applause for the eminent panel who will be coming on stage. So over to you, Rajneesh. Please welcome all our esteemed dignitaries for the next panel. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shobit. So as mentioned, perhaps one of the most awaited panel discussions of these two-day APAC 4th Global Education and Skills Conclave, where we have the decision makers from the top IITs, IIMs, and NITs assembled within one room and on the dais. So it's my pleasure to welcome the panelists. May I welcome Professor Lakshmidhar Behera, Director, IIT Mandi. A round of applause for Professor Behera. Next, we have Dr. A.M. Rawani, Director, National Institute of Technology, Raipur. Welcome, Dr. Rawani. My pleasure to welcome Professor Nagarajan Ramamurthy, Director, IIT IIM Amritsar. Welcome, sir. It's my pleasure to welcome Professor B.S. Murthy, Director, IIT Hyderabad. Welcome, Professor Murthy. The only lady on the panel, Dr. Vinita Sahai, Director, IIM Bodh Gaya. Professor Mahesh Chandra Govil, Director, NIT Sikkim. And from the to get the industry perspective, may I welcome Dipankar Bhattacharya, he's from Autodesk. He's the head of India and ASEAN for education experiences with Autodesk. Round of applause for Dipankar. So primarily the way we would look at it is we will go to each of the panelists with more or less a similar set of questions. And we would like to elicit your views on, so we will restrict it to maybe 2 questions, 2 key areas. And from the academicians, we would like to know that perspective. And Dipankar is here from the industry perspective, because ultimately the topic is on industry-academia collaboration. So whenever we talk of collaboration, both the stakeholders have to be equally proactive. Otherwise, ultimately, the synergy would not happen. So the question is basically one, very fundamentally, as sort of representing the premier institutions in the academic landscape of the country. What are your views? Why do you feel there is still a lack amongst even the premier education institutions in India that we do not have the academia-industrial collaboration to the extent which we see in some of these Ivy League schools, maybe, and even a lot of the European, and the French and those institutions. We don't see it. There are a lot of center of excellences in those academic institutions which are often run and funded. Like Intel is very deeply entrenched in Stanford, maybe. So why don't we see that level of collaboration? The collaboration here is still primarily restricted to the placement and those sort of things. But beyond that, more research-oriented, the centers of excellences, what's the fundamental bottleneck here? And I would like to start with Professor Behera on this. What's your view, sir?
Thank you. I think I won't say that academia and industry interaction is not there. I personally at IIT Kanpur became part of connecting with the TCS and participating in Amazon Robotics Challenge, and 2 times, and then that helped us to forge a partnership that resulted TCS to establish certain homegrown products, resulted joint publications, resulted in patents. I think it's a mindset. We just have to have an attitude. Nowadays, all IITs are focusing on research park, where they're trying to bring in industries. By that process, industry gets access to the intellectual power in the terms of faculty, students, access to the lab facilities that are there, where they can actually collaborate with the academics and develop the proof of concept, at least take the product to the TRL 6 or 7, and from there it can go to the market. I think there are initiatives coming up, at least in major IITs we have seen this. Even at IIT Mandi, we are trying to replicate the similar thing. Yes, it is not there in the scale that is expected. But if we work in that pursuit, I think a great deal of the win-win situation can be established between academia and industry. The most fundamental issue here is that the stakeholders, who are the stakeholders? Stakeholder from the academic perspective is the faculty members and the students. And from the industry perspective, those who are working in the R&D. So we have to look at those industry, like, Samsung have their own program. The Amazon, they have their own program. Qualcomm, they have their own program to get connected to the academia. So there are many industry who have the research focus. They naturally get connected to the industry. So I don't think there is an issue. And as far as the Indian industry is concerned, I find TCS also to Wipro. They are very good at taking the ideas, and if there is an idea, they come forward. And they come also with the problems. Bail also another company, Indian company, that also comes forward, looks for the academia collaboration. I think we have to find a win-win situation from both the sides. More interaction is necessary to create an ecosystem. Thank you.
Thank you. Definitely, I didn't mean to that extent that there is no collaboration in Indian. Definitely there is collaboration. But yes, as you mentioned, that it's still not to that level. And maybe one point where this research part, even the examples you had given, in India, you mentioned examples of TCS or Wipro, which are predominantly services companies, IT services companies. On the other hand, the global examples you gave, Qualcomm or Amazon or even Samsung, which are predominantly R&D, the product-based R&D. So maybe therein lies one of the reasons.
Let me tell you, TCS spends more than 1,000 crore per year in research. The figure, if I want to give you, so that's it may not be as big amount, but that's a substantial amount. Yeah.
Okay. So next I will come to you, Dr. Rawani, with the same question. What are your views? Would you agree with Professor Behra, or you would have some other views on this topic?
Yeah, very good afternoon to all of you. First of all, I thank the organizer for giving me the opportunity to share my views with all of you. I agree with Professor Behra what he has mentioned, but most important thing is that except IITs and few renowned institutes, NITs, if we see across the country, many institutes are there, though they recognize the importance of the institute-industry collaboration, but the collaboration is not happening as it should. The importance of the institute-industry collaboration is well talked about. If we look back, I remember when I was a student from those days, we are always talking about the collaboration, interaction and collaboration and so many things, but it is not happening to the extent which is actually the need of the hour. I think there are a couple of reasons for that, why it is not happening in all the institute except IITs and NITs and good institutes. The reason might be the mindset. As Professor said that the mindset should be there for the collaboration. It should be a proactive approach from both the stakeholders, whether it's an institute or industry. It is a kind of win-win situation. If I see today, the industries are facing many technical issues, many technical problems. And institutes also have to have their curriculum design so as to prepare the students to face the industries, to satisfy the needs of the industry. So survival and growth of the industries, as well as the survival and growth of the institute, both is very difficult and both is competitive. So when they join hands together, when they really understand that they are going to satisfy the needs of each other, then definitely it will be a win-win situation and it will be a real, you can say, collaboration. The reason might be institutes are having lot of technical expertise, knowledge is there, but it is industry sometimes feel that the institutes are carrying out only theoretical work. To some extent, they are true. If we look at the PhDs, what we produce, main focus today is submission of the PhD, and out of the PhD, how many research papers are published. That may be the criteria usually for the submission of the thesis. Even in most of the institutes, that is the criteria, that if you publish 2 papers, 3 papers, then only you will be allowed to submit your PhD thesis. So here our focus is on the theoretical work. So those a couple of you can say differences are also there. Couple of theses are converted into you can say certain commercial ideas as well. The industry should understand that the institutes are not having only the theoretical ideas, they are there to solve their practical problems. Secondly, at the institute, the knowledgeable faculty are available there. Lot of manpower in terms of the student force is available with the institutes. So actually, the institutes have to market their potential, that yes, they have this kind of knowledge. I many times feel that very neighboring institutes having a lot of expertise, but the nearby industry may not be approaching that institute. They more believe on their internal R&D rather than approaching the institutes. So there is a need of marketing of the available, you can say, expertise available with the institute. Then they can come closer. And the attitude of the industry is also not very much encouraging. They should understand the capability of the institutes is a kind of regular process. What happens, I observe that the institutes come forward, they sign MOUs sometimes, and they join hands with the industry, but that might be on ad hoc basis. That is not on a regular basis. The real thing is here that the institute and industry should collaborate on a regular basis. It should be a continuous effort. So that should not be merely a interaction or collaboration. It should be a partnership. Then only it will be a win-win situation. Thank you.
Thank you. That's an important point that you mentioned about this marketing, the need of the institute to market their expertise and research capabilities, and only then, and obviously there has to be more encouragement from the industry side. Only then it can be a mutually win-win situation. I will come next to Professor Nagarajan Ramamurthy, and we were having a discussion just before this, and you were mentioning about the brain drain. So the same question when I put to you, maybe if this industry academia collaboration can scale up better in India, maybe we will be able to some extent reduce the brain drain also. So what's your views on that?
Thank you for the opportunity. I can tell you from both sides, I was in the industry first before actually moving into academy. Even in our own company, we were doing R&D, which was not even known to our own employees. Okay, it was considered as a high secret event. We were doing something on the turbocharger and all that. Now, from a behavioral side, I would consider that to be a mental bottleneck on the part of the industry, where there is lack of trust with the academics that, if we do something, that will this actually go out. So given that context, I think that's a mental bottleneck that we must break into and then open that up. The second thing I also would say, we were talking about before, around the world, if you look at some of the best practices model, right, like in Edmonton, Canada, Google opened up their Google Mind, for artificial intelligence, machine learning, and reinforcement learning, and all that. University of Alberta has benefited immensely as a result of that, because both institutions, they collaborate very highly, And they even set up centers, like they are supported in a variety of fields like endowed professorship and doctoral PhD thesis supports and so on and so forth. I can give you several examples. I think University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, right, a center was set up for automotive engines, right, between Sweden and I think General Motors and the institution. And that is probably a model. I don't know how much it exists in the IITs here. That's probably a model that we can look at where there are centers of excellence like Tamil Nadu, the automotive industry, and Telangana, you have this software development. These are something that we can really look at. But now that I'm in the management institute, heading a management institution, I can honestly tell you that the industry-academia collaboration is highly restricted to internship for our students. And I think in the morning, I don't know how many of you were there in the NIR of this one, a year before, they take the interns and then say, we are hiring this person so that we can train them. So management institutes and industry collaboration is highly restricted compared to the engineering institution. But also, I think government also has a role to play here, meaning that if you really, again, like look at US, which has produced a number of important patents and all that. Take a company like defense industry. Defense industry gives contract to the government, gives the contract to these companies, and they collaborate with the universities, in order to really solve a real world problem. I think it's not, or I wouldn't just call it as an industry academia collaboration, but also the ecosystem there is highly interdependent and intertwined. I think we should actually strive for the public policy also.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Thanks. Very important point. We're talking about research. Perhaps you mentioned, if we look at the number of patents coming out of India compared to what comes out of US, that's probably the outcome of the lack of research or high-scale research activities, and can be one of the valid reasons.
Yeah, just to clarify, in India also, for example, like ISROs and DRDOs, they tend to operate in isolation, right? When they can very well exploit the knowledge base available with IITs and other top institutions. I don't know why there is the disconnect there.
Sure. My next question on the list was to Professor Murthy, but before that, I'd like to mention Professor Behera has a flight to catch. I would allow you to leave, but just my second question I'll ask you first. So this question is, even yesterday during one of the panel discussions, we talked about that. One of the reasons is often, though in premier institutions, the quality of faculty is definitely better than other institutions, but there is a feeling that often there is a lack of industry advances very quickly. There is an obsolescence of knowledge that happens very fast. So are the faculties of even the premier education institutions able to keep up with that? Because that's relevant, whether the students are ultimately taught the current industry relevant things, and maybe the need for more experiential kind of learning. So are the Indian institutions doing that?
Yeah, very good question, actually. You are right, actually. The user, what is looking for is with industry. As an academia, we are aware of the research challenges within the published papers. So the real challenges, what user is looking, that industry has. And that is the reason why industry academia is necessary to take the country together. So what you said is good point, that yes, Samsung, Qualcomm, Intel. These are all research-based industry. They create technology. We don't have. I would say TCS has gone beyond its mandate and is supporting research, but they are also slowly bringing some research-based product. But which is this is something that we have to acknowledge, that we don't have such industrial houses. But still, if you see ISRO has a very good academic exchange, at least with IITs. So also DRDO. And given this Made in India slogan, that particularly the defense is purchasing everything from outside. If that, in some, some step, like now 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, 15 years down the line, if we chalk out a proper plan and create an ecosystem, that would really help. I just want to give little example here, the China story. Of course, now India and China, the relationship is so bad, but in 2015, I was given the guest professor in Hangzhou Dianji University. The Chinese university vice chairman personally came, met me, and I went there. And I saw the ecosystem in China, how it works. In China, government gives the responsibility to every university on a specific area to contribute to the nation building. So the mandate is there. This mandate is not there in India. So this is something lacking. Every country has their own model. Like now Sweden, my good friend, the director of IIT Ropert, he talks about how Uppsala University and the industries around, they collaborate together and develop a product. So every country has their own story. Like Zhejiang University, what Honeywell does, what ABB does, all control standards are built in that university. This is a mandate given there. So I think, alone, suppose I sit in IIT Mandi thinking that how can I contribute to the nation building, it will not work.
True.
For that to happen, the government, the industry, and academia together have to check out a problem. And the responsibility must be also, because government is spending money on these premier institutes. So government must also encash things. So that loop is not complete. And time has come that we talk about this.
Sure. Thanks. Thanks, Professor Behra. I know you have a flight to catch. And thanks for the answer. Okay. Okay. Sure. Thanks a lot. A round of applause for Professor Behra. So Professor Murthy, now I'll come to you again, the first round of question, and what Professor Nagarajan and Professor Behra both talked about. There's a third stakeholder in the ecosystem. It seems to be there who can impact government, we heard from this industry academia. So first, what are your views on the lack of collaboration to that extent? And can government act as a sort of catalyst to help better collaboration between the two?
Yeah, thank you, first of all. I would say this, that if you look at most of the overseas institutions, the kind of collaborations that we are all talking about, it's all because to a large extent the industries there have this feeling that we should develop things ourselves. Somehow India, this has not been very strong. If you look at quite a number of manufacturing industries, I'm more familiar with them rather than the software industries. So people have this tendency of importing things for quite some time. As long as this importing kept on happening, obviously the need for looking for developing things on your own did not happen to a large extent. It is now you start seeing this more and more, last 10 years, I would say more 5 years, that there is more emphasis on the so-called Atmanirbhar Bharat and developing things on our own. For example, just look at DRDO. Just now, Professor also mentioned about DRDO. It has been told to DRDO by 2030, your imports have to come down by 50%. How do? You find out how you do. And this has happened, and as a result now, defense is coming forward. For example, DRDO is setting up something called DIA. I do not know how many of you have heard of this. Defense Industry Academia Center of Excellence. There are about 10 such DIA COEs coming up. IIT Hyderabad is getting one of those, okay, where a large amount of money will be put, but clearly linking an industry so that products come out. Okay, and this is something which is happening now, and you start seeing more and more with other. For example, just now Greenco has signed an MOU with us to put 100 crores at IIT Hyderabad to set up a school for what we call it as sustainability. Okay, so people are seeing, the reason is we have a Department of Climate Change which most of the other IITs do not have. They have seen that there is a strength here, that let us put money. For example, Science has come up, put 20 crores to start a school of what is called innovation and entrepreneurship. We have a Department of Entrepreneurship at an IIT Hyderabad. So they have seen that yes, there is a lot of emphasis on entrepreneurship. For example, we give 6 credits to a student who is willing to work on an innovative idea, even in the first semester of BTech. We give a semester break to them and give them 6 credits for that. For example, most of the internships that we talk about are all typical summer interns. And there is no credits for that in any IIT. Whereas we have now started giving 6 credits to an internship, which is a semester-long internship, which we have started. We have started how to get connected to industry. For example, we started a course called Industry Lectures, which is a mandatory course for all MTechs at IIT Hyderabad. 1 credit course, that means 14 lectures by 14 different industries, talking about what are the exciting things that they are doing. And at the end of it, we ask them, do you have any problems that can be solved in 1 year? Because our MTech students have 1 full year of project. It is like a year-long internship for the industry and a project for the student. And right now, I can confidently say 60% of our projects, MTech projects, are all industry-defined problems. So what I'm saying is there has to be certain initiatives. I mean, somehow this, we have been talking about this, the valley of significant gap between the industry and academia, but somebody has to take initiatives. Okay? And the initiatives, each one of us have been waiting for somebody else to take initiative. And this has started bringing a change. Once we started this, in addition, we said, why don't we reach out to industry? Quite a number of industry people have a BTech done. They want to go and do an MTech, but they cannot take a 1 year leave or 2 years leave. If an industry can give 1 year leave to an employee, they can leave him forever. Okay, so we started what is called online MTech programs. We said we will teach you in the evening hours. You come to IIT Hyderabad only to collect the degree certificate on the day of the convocation. So this has helped. We even said you can do a PhD with us without the need of coming to an IIT. So what I am trying to say is we have to learn how to get connected. Sure. And this is happening, and you would see. For example, we have a number of programs now. We have a program, an MTech in e-waste management with CMET. We have started 3 master programs with the healthcare industry. One with AIG in Hyderabad, Asian Institute of Gastroenterology, where we say an MTech in medical device innovation, where the student spends 4 months in the hospital, comes out and says, these are all problems that the patients are facing, picks up one problem, at the end of 2 years MTech, he has a prototype in hand. Okay. So these things are important. Okay. We have started an MTech in ophthalmic engineering with LV Prasad Eye Institute. So it is important to find out where are the gaps. We have started a number of new interdisciplinary MTech programs, finding out what does the industry want. So it is important that every institution, last 2 years, I would say COVID has given us a chance to introspect, to find out what does the industry need. So this is important. Thank you.
Got it. Thank you. So two very important things you mentioned, maybe to make the learning more industry relevant, these industry relevant courses, which were maybe not there originally in the curriculum, but which has got incorporated now. You also endorsed the point that there has to be some policy level support, like for the defense. One interesting thing are these DIA, COEs you mentioned, all 10 are in academic institutions only.
They are set up in academic institutions, but for each of those, there are a few industries which are connected.
Okay.
Okay, so that is very important. Without an industry connect, a COE is not given.
Sure. Okay. Thank you. Dr. Vinita, I'll come to you next. Again, your views on the industry-academia collaboration and what is lacking.
There's one. So thank you, APAC, for conducting this. Well, there are all academicians sitting here, and there is a need for reflection, but reflection we could have done even in our respective institutions. So what is missing is that interface between industry and us. So a humble request, this is a great platform that we have created, but somewhere we have to also create a platform where we come together. So right now, the number of academicians possibly is much more than maybe the industry partners. But professor from IIT Hyderabad had set this tone very encouraging. You know, there are issues. We keep talking about that our graduates are not employable. And at the other end, we also keep talking about that 40% of IITs and IIMs are running, or like we all are running at 40% faculty capacity or whatever. But one thing I must also congratulate APAC is for, giving the theme so accurately, that Indian Industry Academia Partnership, what are the next milestones? Because very rarely do we talk about what to do next. We keep coming, we keep discussing, but then what? So good that at least today we are talking about that what needs to be done. And yes, you rightly pointed out that if you compare our business school with our business school in the Western world, two differences are very, very stark. One is the entrepreneurship culture, and second is industry partnership. So, okay, then what? So luckily, of late, maybe I live with very young people, so I'm very, very optimistic about the way going forward. And professor from IIT Hyderabad has just added further flavor to it, that we must quickly discuss, yes, there are problems, then what next? So how I see it coming from a relatively new business school is, yes, we need to sit together and discuss and create really win-win symbiotic relationships, whether it is in form of MOUs or Center for Excellence and so on and so forth. And somebody was also mentioning about that how our faculty needs to be. So we all know the stages. First itself is the content visualization or prediction or estimation that going forward what is needed. Like I'm a marketing professor, and being in the role of director, I really dread going back to teaching because marketing has changed in the last 5 years. And in coming 5 years, it's going to be absolutely different. So somebody from industry definitely can help us guide that what could be the course outline for the future. So the whole estimation and prediction of going forward, what's going to be there. That, again, putting it into creation of content. Now, once the content is created, somebody also mentioned that how Corona has been such a blessing in disguise. And coming from Bodh Gaya, yes, geographies have ceased to exist. So today I can actually have a industry practitioner from Bangalore coming into my classroom, which is so heartening. And let's make use of this, because as professors, we were always very wary of technology, but Corona at one go has made it disappear, even for students, even for us. So I think today it is much easier for industry practitioner to come into our class, actually hop in and sit there and co-create the class with the theoretical person. I've seen it dovetail like music. I've seen professors enjoying it. I've seen students enjoying it. And I think that's the great future. And I don't know where will I find that platform where we will, we will exert it on the industry practitioners. Ki, come on, let's get going. So that is one thing which is very doable. So content estimation, prediction, content creation, content delivery, and finally experiential learning. So much more can be done over the net. Most of the businesses, now one thing again, Corona has said that businesses can be run over the net. So again, if businesses can be run, so can be short-term projects, live projects, small guest assignments, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot that we can do in future. Only thing is we have to just quickly create a platform where we can discuss it together. And rather than lamenting about the fact that there is a lack of coordination, let's quickly come together and create that coordination. And I would urge institutions like APAC that let's create few more platforms like this where we can be face-to-face, directly in touch with industry who are ready to willing to partner with institutions like us.
Sure. Thanks. And maybe one point you mentioned, the difference between Indian business schools and some of the more developed country business schools, the entrepreneurship spirit, that's hoping changing for the better, looking at the number of unicorns and startups that in the last few years have come up in India. Professor Mahesh Chandra Govil, I'll come to you next with your views on the lack of industry-academia collaboration.
Okay, first of all, I would like to thank APAC for giving us the opportunity to be here. And of course, topic is very relevant and important one. And I look this in the prospect of diversity. We can see the diversity in the institution in India. It's a big country and we know the population is large, number of institutions are large, and the student capacity and quality is also at times being discussed, right? We belong to the Institute of Nature Importance, therefore we are being blessed with the good students, and therefore sometimes these tasks become little easier to us, institute in industry interaction, because of the name of the NIT, IIT, the industry comes to us and placement, so many things are there. But I'm looking from this industry, institute, academia, interaction, discussion from last 30, 40 years. And of course, the situation has now improved a lot. We can't say that it is the same situation 5 years down the line. But I see some of the factors which are very, very important. One is, of course, we know who are the stakeholders, student, faculty, staff, and industry. These are the four, and the government is, of course, is there. But I found even in there is a lack of interest in the faculty and the staff also, while we go to the industry, sign MOU, and at times that MOU is within the file. So that is not really happening. So we have to give a proper structure for executing this industry academia interaction. Even when we sign the MOU among the academia, the execution is not really happening. We are thankful to IIT Hyderabad. We signed the MOU from Sikkim. And now IITs are coming up with a very nice schemes of allowing the student from the other institutions, not only NITs, but from the private institutions also, to come over there for 1 year or the 6 months. And I think this is really a very, very nice step on the part of the IITs, so that the student can perceive what is the environment of and good institution is. This is one. But when it comes to the industry and academia, I think we both are 50-50 equally responsible for that. Even when you talk about the curriculum development, I'm sorry to say, but it's my personal 35 years of experience. It's not happening actually. When we discuss curriculum, the inputs are not proper from the industry. At times we are not agreeing, right, what to be delivered to the students. So designing a curriculum itself is a daunting task still. Another part which is very, very important is the laboratory. When it comes to the engineering, and now I think it's the management also, I think laboratories are somewhere going to back of you can say the academics. And rather it should be, I think, given a much better importance than your theoretical input. So I believe IITs have a very good laboratories. NITs also have a very good, you can say, laboratories. But when you go to the second level or the third level institutions, the laboratories are not there. If the laboratories are there, the training to the students is missing, totally missing. Sometimes the labs are on the blackboards. It's really funny. So when we are talking about the students are not ready for the industry, and sometimes NASCOM ke only 20% or the 25 students are placeable, I think this is a big question for all of us as an industrialist. Oh, sorry, as an academician. So I believe the industry has to come forward also, because I said both are 50-50 responsible for. There is a lack of interest in the industry also. There is a lack of interest in the we people also. So I believe faculty should be motivated. And another important question is, unless until you train your faculty, it's not going to be really happening. So I believe the faculty must be sent at least 2 to 3 months training to the faculty, to the industry, and industry must accept faculty as their employee and train them on the technologies.
Okay.
So this is, I think, important factors. Thank you.
So a very important suggestion in terms of faculty from the institutions going to the industry and get proper, I won't maybe call that training, because obviously the faculties, but reorientation, I may say industrial reorientation. So next I'll come to you, Dipankar. Now you have heard from the other side, from all the academicians, and many of them, the common consensus has been that industry still has not played its role in full. So what is your perspective in terms of what role or responsibility industry has there? And maybe very briefly, yesterday during the inaugural session, you had one mentioned about a point being all students are going for computer science courses. There are not many takers for civil or mechanical. So does therein lie one of the reasons for why this collaboration is still not happening to that extent? Your views?
Yeah, thanks. I think I am on the other side. So the eminent academicians from premier institutes have given their views. So I have just jotted down a few points as I was sitting here. If you look at collaboration between academia and industry, there are three aspects of this collaboration. One is, professor from IIT Hyderabad already mentioned about internship opportunities in the industry, which is also a kind of an industry academia collaboration. If you look at this particular aspects, I don't see very many colleges in the country today who have a formal internship program for 6 months. Because if it is a 1 or 2 months internship, it really doesn't achieve the purpose. My own son.
Here, if I may interrupt here, yes, I agree with you. But in many cases, we have seen even the industry really providing the interns end up being the interns doing rudimentary things, not the actual hands-on training maybe. So is there some responsibility of the industry here also?
Yeah, there is a response.
Because it is very short.
Short.
If it is long,
Yes.
every industry will be able to.
Like, for example, BITS Pilani has a 6 months compulsory internship in the final year, okay? And this is not today. They are doing it, I think, for more than 2 decades now. So if you really look at my own younger son is doing an internship for 2 months at IISc. So he's been given this rudiment because the time is short. The professor knows that this is a short-term thing which is being done between IISc and the college, and there is no significant output that, whether it is for 6 months. So that is, I think, that is where I think we really need to, both industry and academia need to work together, and the policy makers, because it needs a change in the system. Whereas the national education policy has been announced, I think this is one piece, I don't know whether it is really there, this is one missing piece. The second thing is the industry courses, which again Professor from IIT Hyderabad mentioned. There are not very many courses which are in association with the industry. I see some courses. I was in VIT Vellore. There's a course in code delivered by TCS. We as Autodesk have gone to multiple institutes and talked to institutes that can we run a new course, let it be elective course, 1 credit, 2 credit, whatever, whether that can be done. I don't see much of a traction in that, because the thing is we are governed in an academic system which is very constrained. If IITs have more autonomy, NITs have autonomy, but whatever the rest of the ecosystem, I think that's one aspect. The third aspect is what we mentioned, call about the center of excellence. Okay. Now, center of excellence is a concept, where I see a lot of traction that is happening. But again, it is restricted with collaboration in the premier institutes of the country. Okay. It has not percolated to the next tier 2 and tier 3 institutes. So from our side, we are making a conscious effort. Autodesk and other industry stakeholders are making a conscious effort to go even to the tier 2 and tier 3 universities and institutes, because that is the need of the hour. Because while IITs are the premier institutes, IIMs are the premier management institutes of the country, but if you look at the TAM, the TAM lies in the next segment of the market. And the other important point is the people who stay back in the country are from that segment of the market. That is, so if with due respect to IITs, I think the large population from the IITs, they get into into maybe other jobs which may not be relevant to engineering with due respect to them, or they get into other research areas abroad. Okay, so I think the next tier 2 and tier 3 should be the focus. I think there is a lot of opportunity there. There's already a lot of industry collaboration in the tier 1 institutes with all the IITs, NITs and all. But I think the focus should be on the larger TAM, because that is where we will generate the talent pool. And I'm linking this to my statement yesterday about the lack of, mechanical and civil engineers who can fit into the requirements of the industry. So I think that is where the marriage or the merger should happen in terms of the collaboration. I can go on and on talking about this subject, very close to my heart, but these are some of the points. The last point which I want to mention is, I think the faculties in the institutes must have industry experience. Okay, I think that is one thing which is lacking today. This is the former director of IIT Kanpur. I had a long chat with him. He mentioned this point to me, that our interview panel, this is not the criteria in the job description, that he must have so many years of experience in that particular domain in whichever he is applying to. So I leave with these few thoughts from my side. Thank you.
Thanks. And that's the last point that you mentioned is critical. It's not just industry knowledge, but very current industry knowledge or reorientation, as Professor Mahesh mentioned earlier, that maybe sending the faculty to industry to get reoriented is a need of the hour. So I will now come to each of the panelists, starting with Dr. Ravani, and very briefly. Sure. So very briefly, 1 minute each. As Dr. Vinita mentioned, the important thing is identify the next milestone. What next? So one action which you feel immediately needs to be done, or it might have started happening already, or needs to be done to rectify the situation. Dr. Ravani.
One I cannot say, but 2, 3 I can definitely say. Because with one only we cannot be satisfied having a good collaboration with the industries. So first of all, the internship is a thing which should be there for the students, and that too semester long internship. I'm happy to share that NIT Raipur were earlier having only 1 month in, training program. From 2019, we have revised the curriculum. And now we are having the full semester internship program for the students. This has lot many advantages. Every one of us knows that. Secondly, that the mindset we were talking about in the earlier discussion. So actually the focus of the institute, particularly the second and third level institutes, what we were talking about, the focus is always on teaching the students, not beyond that. So that there is a need of changing this particular attitude, and that is possible that they should have in their mission and vision that the collaboration should be there, that should be there. So mission, vision should be there, and faculty should be facilitated. For that, a properly defined procedure should be in place. It should not be on ad hoc basis, as one industry is approaching some different procedure, and every time we are exploring that how we can collaborate and how we can do the things. That should be a certain standard practices that should be adopted in the institute. And thirdly, I should say that the government support is a must. The government should make it a mandatory for the industries that they should collaborate with the institute. They should have some kind of partnership with the institutes. As in Unnat Bharat Abhiyan, there is a mandatory that each of the participating institute, they have to say adopt 5 villages. Similarly, this kind of thing should be there, that the industry should adopt or partner, I should not say adopt, partner with so many academic institutes. So such kind of mandate will definitely help in a closer collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you. Professor Nagarajan, 1 minute, your 1 minute and your views.
I would also say that, this UGC and other guidelines, even the MBA program, that's the one I can talk about. I feel that the program length is too much, which doesn't allow the students to go for the industry internship for a longer period of time. Okay, that should be revisited to see whether we need too many courses in the curriculum, right, at the expense of students learning something from the industry. Okay, that's one. Second thing, most of the time this ranking and all that, you look at the number of faculty with PhD. So as a head of the institution, it puts pressure on me to hire more PhDs in the faculty as opposed to industry people, right? Where the interface can take place. So that's also something at the policy level we need a little bit clearer direction.
Okay. Thank you, Professor Murthy. Your 1 minute.
Yeah. So as you would always know that any of these, European other countries, they have become strong because of a very strong manufacturing power. Through just a service sector, no country can really become. So that has happened because, as you all have been talking, that there was a strong interaction. So as Professor pointed out, one possibility should be that if industry wants the manufacturing aspect to grow in academics, this kind of a mentoring institutions by the industry are kind of adopting a few institutions. I was on the board of some of the private colleges. Whenever they are saying that we are trying to close civil, we are trying to close mechanical, this is exactly what I used to say. That bring some industries who will adopt your college, okay, to ensure that these students and faculty spend some time in the industry, and automatically they will see that there is a use of such a mentorship. And that, I think, is very important. Similarly, when you are doing the curriculum, there has to be an industry involvement. For example, right now we have brought out an MTech program in electronic packaging, first time in the country, where we have a tie-up with Qualcomm, we have a tie-up with Moschip, we have a tie-up with AMD, that all our students do their projects there, okay? And they have a laboratory exposure there. So all the design aspects are taught at IIT, all the fab aspects are taught at these industries. So this kind of a collaborative programs, if you start bringing, then it's a win-win for both, okay?
Thank you. So innovative collaborative programs. Dr. Vinita, your 1 minute now.
I think blueprint, we all know that we just have to make it happen. At least 20% of the classes should be outsourced to industry practitioners. We must have industry practitioners on all our advisory boards, whether it is at an institution level or at an area level or a subject or domain knowledge level. This is a nice suggestion that internships should be lengthened for industry to make some use of the talent available, because in the shorter duration, even the talent is not able to add much value and industry doesn't see it that seriously. And yes, mandate, I'm not too sure, because then we're leaving it to the government, and governance, a government has too many things on hands. So, but yes, coming from IIMs, I guess two of us are sitting there, and one day 20 of us can sit together and we can decide amongst ourselves that possibly some of the institutions take lead in some of the areas which the country needs. And because that would be the nice way to, make our autonomy much more effective. Because if we have been given that, it should be put to use. So these are some of the thoughts which are coming to my mind as of now. But yes, rather than, one thing is for very sure, that rather than cribbing about it and lamenting about it, time has come to us to make it happen, and nobody else than us who has to make it happen. As a teacher, I think sitting all of us, I've always felt that sense of urgency, because if not now, then when? And if not we, then who? Because with the population of 70% in the age group of 19 to 25, if this time around we do not scale up, we do not empower our young people, sorry, this time we will not have Britishers to blame, foreign rules to blame. The blame will lie squarely on us, people who are in the education sector. So I think the whole idea is join hands and make it happen. That's the spirit with which India has to operate now.
Thanks. So your mantra is make it happen, and very important that those 2 points you mentioned. If not we, then who? And if not now, then when? Professor Mahesh, your 1 minute.
Okay. So first, I think I should answer the question of mechanical and civil engineering. It's not like that the students are not willing to go to their parent departments of civil engineering, but the fact is that the package which is available in these industries as compared to IT industry is too less. That is the one question, and thereby most of the students wants to get entered into the computer science and engineering. This is a big reason, not availability. Second, I think we have seen now we are sort of this semiconductor, okay, even for this automobile industry. And slowly, whatever establishment was there for the semiconductor industry, they have not performed well. So I think we have to boost the industrial setup in the certain area where they are the futuristic, and so that we can really think of this real industry and institute interaction. Unless until we have an industry, how can we think of this in reality, right? So that is must, and we have already discussed, I think faculty has to be trained properly, otherwise it's not going to happen. So this is, I think, important. Thank you.
So the semiconductor part, maybe till fabs don't come up in India, maybe this will remain a challenge always.
They are coming up, sir. In 3
Yes.
years, you will see a lot of work happening there.
Okay. So Deepankar, you have the last word and your 1 minute time.
Okay, difficult to cover in 1 minute. I'll try my best. So I am just relating this initiative called Making Rebuilding India Initiative, which is an initiative of Niti Aayog and the Berkeley Innovation Forum to train 600 million youths across the country over the next so many years. So I think this is an initiative which needs the industry-academic collaboration. I firmly believe is a marriage where both the parties need to be proactive and come together. And if we can align with some of the initiative, because if we align to this kind of initiative, and this is across different sectors, this is not only manufacturing or design, across different sectors. So my humble request would be that as premier institutes like IITs and IIMs can take the lead, I would suggest some kind of a hub and a spoke model. Like, for example, we have IIT Hyderabad. If they, if Autodesk is associated with them as a center of excellence, run initiatives, but expand that and scale that to the next set of tier institutes with IIT Hyderabad as the nodal center. So similarly, we have IITs in all regions, other premier institutes. That is how it will scale and reach the broader education ecosystem of the country to reach this goal of skilling 600 million youth. That's my take.
Sure. Thanks. So We have paucity of time, so we have to conclude. Otherwise, it was a very interesting discussion, and there were more points which could have been discussed. So before we let all the panelists assemble, we would like to, all of you know that we had an awards felicitation yesterday evening, and Professor B.S. Murthy, Director IIT Hyderabad, was not present there. So we would first like to felicitate Dr. B.S. Murthy here. And may I request Gopi Krishna Arora from APAC News Network to come on stage. Here. We would like to now hand over to each of the panelists a small memento and token of appreciation. In that order, Lakshmidhar Behra, he has gone. So Dr. A.M. Rawani. Professor Nagarajan Ramamurthy. Professor B.S. Murthy. Dr. Vinita Sahar. Professor Mahesh Chandra Govind. Dipankar Bhattacharya. And may I request all the panelists to gather together for And with that, I would like to request Shobhi Goswami to come on stage for the next panel discussion.
Thank you, madam. Nice meeting you. If you come to Hyderabad anytime, please let me know. Yes. My card, sir. Thanks, sir. Thank you. So diary here, you can leave the bag if you want. Just the diary you can carry.
Thanks, Rajneesh, and thanks all the eminent panelists of the previous session. And now from the higher education, let's shift our focus to school education, and very interesting session again on changing pattern of assessment in a blended learning model. And for that, we have got eminent speakers from the school ecosystem from the entire country. Let me invite Dr. Parveen Kukreja, Academic Director, Shameford Futuristic School, Agra, to come on stage, please. A huge round of applause for her. Dr. Parveen Kukreja. May I request Dr. Sunita Swaraj, Principal, the Heritage School from Delhi, to come on stage, please. We have with us Dr. Shalini Bajaj, Principal, the Maurya School, Gurugram, to come on stage, please. We have with us Dr. Mansi Agarwal, Founder and Managing Director of Scottish Early Years, Delhi. We welcome Dr. Mansi. We have with us Mamta Sabarwal, Vice Principal and Head of School, Darshan Academy, Delhi. We welcome Ms. Mamta. Thank you so much for coming today. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining us today. I think it's an interesting topic, especially in the context of when we have the impending mission mode program called National Education Policy. It's in the implementation stage. So let me start with Dr. Parveen Kokreja. In terms of NEP or National Education Policy, if we talk about the schools, is there any tool or mechanism to assess the impact of schools in NEP? What are your thoughts on that?
Till now, I will be very thankful, first of all, you app to giving me this opportunity. You are asking for some tool. So till now, I think tool is our teacher itself. So we teachers.
Tool or provisions, whatever you can place.
You ask me again.
Yeah, I'm saying in the NEP, there are provisions of assessing the impact of schools. So how do you analyze that kind of structure?
I will say that we will just organize this structure by our teachers itself till now. We are not using any different technology. We are based at Agra. So we are assessment of the students we are doing by the simple method presently. But with the NEP, there comes a changes. We are now going for the ERP systems and all.
Let me have a perspective of Dr. Shalini Bajaj as well. Dr. Shalini, in terms of this blended model of education, right, a lot of things have changed, are changing, especially with the new world order. In last 2 years, a lot of things have changed, blended education, everything is there. What kind of changes do you foresee in the assessment in terms of innovation or other means for that, say? What are your thoughts on that?
See, NEP was introduced, in 2020.
Is she audible? Yeah, I think so.
See, NEP could not be implemented due to pandemic. During pandemic, we shifted from having an offline mode of teaching to online mode of teaching. Our teachers upgraded, new methods were introduced. So the thought process by which NEP was introduced, it has now quite changed. Now, when we're talking about assessments, it has to be the way you said, blended model. Like, we cannot do it with technology now. So now assessments have to have both the aspects in offline mode as well as online. So technology blended assessments have to be there. The assessments according to NEP have to be competency based, where more stress is on the formative assessments, that is day-to-day assessments. It's about not about assessment of learning the way we have it. We've taught them something, then they memorize it and they write an exam. No, it's not like this now. It is an ongoing process. It is assessment for learning, where teachers they assess where exactly are the students, they diagnose, then they come up with a model and they implement, and assessment as learning, where children, which is student-based, student-centric, where student also, they assess themselves, and with the help of teachers, they come up with a model where they can learn. So this is how the assessments have to change. The rote, the kind of, rote memorizing model, and where, we're only testing the lower realms of cognitive domain, have to change, and we have to move to a model where, we have children who basically, the way they were explaining in the last session, which are employable, skill-based, where you can utilize their abilities.
Right, it's an ongoing process. If I take a crux of what you have said, and we all have to be ready to accept that change where we leverage technology and innovation more and more in terms of assessment. Let's have a perspective from Dr. Sunita Swaraj. Dr. Sunita, your thoughts on that?
Uh, If I may say that NEP, I think it's a welcome change for all. Everybody was actually waiting for it, but since I belong to an organization who has been into experiential learning for past many years now, I think we were the pioneers. So NEP, when it came to us, it was like, there's nothing that would actually change in our organization because we've been doing it. Now, if I talk about assessments generally, if you remember, I don't know, you must be younger than me, but याद है वो दिन जब हम लोग सप्लीमेंट्री शीट्स लेते चले जाते थे और सबसे ज्यादा जो लेते थे वो सबसे बढ़िया होते थे. And I used to wonder, what are they writing? So
How many pages you have taken?
Absolutely. And I used to just worry, and I used to get over with the exam first. So today, if I may talk about assessment, we do not have assessment. We do not have examination in our school till grade 8. And initially, when we started this some 15 years back, parents were very unhappy with it. But today, if I look at, I think assessments is much more important than evaluation. And grade 12, if I look at 99%, 99 point some percent, highest. हमारे time में क्या होता था कि distinction आ गई तो लड्डू बच जाते थे. So, I mean, where are we heading? What are we really aiming at? And despite 99.9 whatever percent, ये देश कूड़ेदान है. If you just look around, and when you're really driving down, this litter all around. There's so many problems that we have in our country. If our education system, the evaluation was so wonderful that we could get 99%, then I think things could have been very different. So I feel that NEP, I think, has to be implemented. CCE आया था, सब लोगों ने कोशिश की और वहाँ पहुँचे और वो बदल गया. Now NEP is here. It's very important for us to understand that there has to be a training around it. There has to be an understanding around it for it to really welcome it, to really bring in those changes inside the classroom. The pedagogy, our BEds are just a stamp to be a teacher. Where are these teachers getting trained from? So a lot of it, CBSE is doing it, but a lot has to happen in terms of pedagogical shift and training.
Interesting perspective. I'll come back to you. Let's have a perspective from Dr. Mansi. Mansi, your opinion, lot needs to be done? Or do you think that NEP has been a good start, but as she was saying that all rest on how it is being implemented and whether it is implemented or not? Your thoughts on that?
I 100% agree with her that you have to see how it's implemented. It's also important to realize that, as ma'am mentioned, we're sitting in a city where a lot of schools are private schools and we belong to a privileged few. So if you look at the private schools, for them, it's not that big a shift when you look at the NEP because they already have technology labs. They're already promoting critical thinking. They have been doing that. I'm lucky to be, from the 90s, as I would say, probably the only one on the panel. So with that, I did have access to other unconventional subjects, which I could have pursued as, a profession. However, when you look at a national education policy, it is for all the schools across the country. And the majority of those schools, which will actually bring grassroots level of change, would be the public schools. So with this policy, what will happen is that there will be significant and impactful change in the public schools to promote critical thinking, to promote emotional well-being, to promote logical reasoning, and provide them access where the only options are not either becoming an engineer or a doctor, and they can go beyond those conventional and orthodox professions and kind of think. So I do agree implementation is required. We hope that with the guidelines that came in 2020, it's not an overnight change that will happen. We understand it, I'm sure, as educationists, and we accept it. So it would take at least a decade to, I would say, have an impact and to bring any kind of change, because they need to create training facilities. They need to, I'm very glad that they've brought in mandatory 5 hours of yearly training. But it's also important to understand that when you say 25 hours of yearly training, one, it needs to be qualitative. Like it needs to be quality 25 hours, because that's technically only 2 hours a month. So if it is 2 hours a month, it needs to be done in a way that it's not just another stamp. If it is done the right way, I'm sure that in the next 20, 30 years, we will see an impact of this policy that has been introduced.
And I can take a cue from what both of you have said, that we can also see that there is an intent. A lot of things can happen. We can take the example of Delhi government schools. The kind of sea change has been done. So if there's an intent, you mentioned about public schools, that's why I'm just giving that reference, that a lot of things can happen actually. And my next question was supposed to be about the non-creamy part of this education system, but I'm glad that you have raised that point. I'll come back to you. Let's have a perspective from Mamta Sabarwal. Ma'am, your thoughts on this? अभी तक हम कहाँ पहुँचे और कहाँ पहुँच सकते हैं, आपको क्या लगता है?
First of all, a very lovely evening to everyone, and thank you APAC for giving the opportunity. Sir, if I'll start from अभी तक कहाँ पहुँचे, तो शायद अभी शुरू ही नहीं किया. अभी तो चलना शुरू किया है और सफर बहुत लंबा है. Because if we talk about NAP 2020 and the blended learning, they go hand in hand. Why? Because in a true aspect, if you see, the blended learning has started at almost the same time. Same time in a way that nobody thought of, that education could also be through technology. It was just that there was a lockdown and everybody was thrown in that pool. And we have been expected, the educators, just to swim. So at that point of time, there was no other go, but I think it was that we had to swim. So I guess it was a blessing in disguise that everybody worked out day and night, and then they did not only swim, but they survived. So that was the same time the technology, and you see in no time that technology has become a part and parcel of our life of education, wherein the students now, they do not want to go only with the traditional system. They want to have that blended mode. Why? Because that is there. They are the natives of technology. So that is the area which appeals to them the most. So now when the blended is there is a challenge for the schools, for the educators. The challenge is that we have to maintain the pace. And along with maintaining the pace, we also have to maintain that balance. Balance to see that how much access of technology we can give it to our students so that they can be on a right track. So that is why we have to be very, very categorical, very analytical to see that how much technology usage we are doing here with the children. And then when you said NAP, if I talk about, there are 4 C's of blended learning, which is communication, which is critical thinking, which is collaboration, and which is creativity. And all these 4, they go in consonance with the 21st century skills, which is a part of NAP 2020. Because what is the vision of NAP 2020? If you see the vision was just to develop an education system that is deeply rooted into Indian ethos. Ethos is wherein that we have to help our children to develop not only academically, but emotionally, culturally, spiritually, technically, and all-round well-being. So that is why they have talked about holistic education. So holistic education, now just to make people understand, and people when I say, that means the stakeholders, Now, when I say the stakeholders, these stakeholders are whom? They are largely, we have so many, but if we say the largely, it is being the parents and the students. So first to make them understand that yes, true, our education system is like that the percentage, what you were saying, 99.9, and that is also not sufficient. But now is the time we need to realize that yes, along with that percentage, there has to be skill enhancement, which has been talked about in NEP through the competency-based education. So that is what I'm saying, it is just a start. Because, and that to what I would agree to it, it is something which is happening in the urban area. Still, we are prone to, we have technology. In no time, we can have the technology into our classrooms, whatever Dr. Vinita was saying in the previous session. Yes, whatever we want to create in our classes, with the help of technology, we can easily do it. But have we thought of about the remote areas? Have we thought of that how technology or how NEP is being implemented? Because when it has to be implemented, it has to have the overall development of the country. We cannot talk about the development of one arena or one area. So I think it is just a start. And yes, it has to be very strongly have to be put in the minds of the people that apart from academics, we have to go with the skill-based education wherein there has to be competencies we need to develop, which is, that means only knowledge, cognitive part is not sufficient. That means we have to have their values, their attitudes, everything should go in good coordination, in good combination, which will help the children to do and to excel in whatever they do it. So that is how they'll be able to perform the best if they have all the skills with them.
Right. Very interesting perspective. I'll come back to you. Let me have a perspective, Dr. Sunita, again. I can ask the same question to all of you because I need to know, and then we can analyze that where we are standing. But are the schools ready at present for a universal assessment system? Are we ready for that? Are we equipped with that?
Not at all. See,
not universal, maybe uniform assessment system, if I may.
See, uniform assessment system, I think we all have gone through, and we all are now questioning whether that's really working for all of us. So let me take an example of COVID. You know, everybody was in this mode of having that 3-hour exam. और बच्चे बैठ जाते थे सिस्टम के सामने, टीचर उधर से देख रही है कि अच्छा कॉपी कर रहे हैं नहीं कर रहे हैं. और आजकल के बच्चे looking at the technology, I mean, you don't know whether you have one system in front of you or you have 4 systems in front of you. So what we did is we did not have 3 hours exam. Very consciously, we did not have 3 hours exam. Thanks to the technology, the various edtech players which came to our rescue. There were so many of them who were available for quick assessments. So those quick assessments were much more fruitful than that 3-hour exam, which you do not know. Now, even, that 3-hour exam, the child got 90%. And the child, when he came back to the school and we had this offline exam, the child got 20%. So that was a big answer to the question, what do we need? I think with the change in technology, with COVID, that shook us. I think there's so much that has come in. And we actually, educators are overwhelmed because we were never ever trained on technology ever. But now I think हमारे पास कोई चारा नहीं था, या तो जॉब करो या फिर टेक्नोलॉजी, जॉब छोड़ दो या टेक्नोलॉजी को एम्ब्रेस करो. तो पहले जब हम बोलते थे ना टीचर्स को कि ये टेक्नोलॉजी का ये करना है, नहीं, हमें थोड़ी वो तो कंप्यूटर टीचर करने वाली है. But I think with time, with this COVID, there's so much that has come to the platter. And today, I think they all are really competent enough. And it's more of a student teaching the teacher than the teacher teaching the student. So I think we are, with NEP coming in, grade 3, you're going to have an assessment, evaluation, I would say, grade 5. So I don't know whether are we really wanting that? I'm still questioning myself. Are we really wanting that? Or the ongoing untold assessments is an answer to the success of everyone?
Dr. Shalini, your thoughts on this?
Your question is, are we ready for the assessments?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
My question was that are schools ready for more uniform assessment system? Are we ready? Both in terms of whether teachers are ready or not, whether management is ready for or not. Your take on that?
See, management will be ready. Whatever resources will be asked, they will provide us. But the point is, after certain age, adults become so rigid. There has to be a lot of, unlearning and then learning. We're so used to, following a set of system, which is, kind of ingrained in us. Let me take an analogy. Like, I have got 4 different children in my class. I have to teach them 4 different skills. Lifting weights, climbing trees, running, and swimming. And my 4 students are a monkey, an elephant, a crocodile, and a deer. And I have a same set of, assessment. So that will not work. So we have to kind of, teach, I would say, unlearn and learn again that, we have to modify our assessment based upon, the kind of abilities and skills children have. And we're not yet ready. Of course, in parts we're doing it. Because when we had CCE, we were doing all those formative assessments and we had reached a level. Then it was stopped. We went again back to that system. And where, we'll just teach them knowledge-based and understanding. They will memorize it and they will write an exam. Now, again, coming back to it, it's going to take time. The teachers will require a lot of, training. Plus, the parents have to be consulted because they also want, the answers should be given. The teacher should, dictate answers, and they would send their children to the tuition teacher. They will memorize and they will write an exam. And if the children get, A+ or 99% marks, they're very happy. But they don't realize, marks basically do not represent your success. Success, we can very well see there's so many examples. Children who have not done well in school, they're so successful. So I think, we should get, proactive and, start with this process in case if we want to implement NEP in its true spirit.
We have to be more proactive if we have to implement NEP in its true spirit. That's what Dr. Shalini's take. Dr. Parveen, your thought on that?
I will say that this system will be definitely beneficial for us. But in present situation, our teachers are much trained than the earlier last 2 years. Because as we all are discussing, this COVID may be having some harmful impact, but in other way, it's a blessed also because indirectly it trains the teacher, it makes student also, if the student is efficient, he can perform better by the technology. But sometimes the new technology or new guidance which are coming regarding NEP, which involve competent-based assessment, will be highly beneficial if we can assess it, if we can get our teacher trained to do it. Because the competent-based, as in earlier session, which is on higher education, we are listening that they have a point that the teachers should get trained in the industry. Same way in the schools, if our teachers will go for the multiple choice question, then our students will better go for the entrance examination. The fear which few students have in their mind, what will be different in the competitive exam. So with this competent-based assessment, the students can perform better in their competitive exams. Thank you
so much. Thanks for this because my next question to Dr. Mansi was based on competency-based assessment. There's a shift from, if I can say that, shift from content-based assessment to competency-based assessment, which makes somehow the life easier for the student in terms of exams, a little lighter. But I think in the long run, that is going to be beneficial. How do you see that things unfolding in terms of competency-based assessment?
I think already the pattern that CBSE is giving to the schools require 40% MCQ questions, 20% objective type questions, and only 40% of the questions are short and long answer questions in a particular examination. But what I also see, as a shift is that slowly, gradually, students who do not perform well in the academic examinations will also start getting recognized if they're doing well in other areas. So if they're doing well in art and craft, if they're doing well in technology block, if they're doing well in carpentry or some other subjects, they will also start getting formal recognition, which is not just on a class level or a section level, but on a larger school level. And I think that is very important to encourage them so that they don't feel second in line or just because they are doing well in an alternate segment as opposed to academia. So, and that is what the NEP is about, giving almost equal importance to scholastic as well as co-scholastic activities, as well as activities which are, mindset activities. So I feel that there's going to be a significant shift, there's going to be a significant change. And to go back to what you were discussing before also, I think it's also important to tie the assessment to this. While there's going to be assessment of academic and scholastic activities, there will also now be formal assessment of co-scholastic activities. So when that comes in your quote-unquote report card, because eventually it's going to take a lifetime to change the mindset of parents. Eventually what matters is that end of the year, what report card comes, that does have an impact. We cannot change that mindset on day one. Eventually, we also as parents, I'm sure that while we are sitting here and talking about NEP and we're talking about co-curricular activities and a change that we want to bring in, you equally care if your child gets through to the best college. And where the criteria needs to trickle down and change is also from higher institutions, where right now, last year itself, my niece just graduated +2, and the cutoff for SRCC was 100. And that was her dream school. Luckily, eventually, God bless them. But yes, there was one seat for choreography / Western dance, and she got through that. So I think there need to be more number of seats allocated to people and students who are doing well in other segments. Only then will that pressure reduce on students from parents that, okay, fine, if you have to go to a government institution for higher studies, we don't really need you to get 100%. It's because eventually, if you look at the tree, it goes from profession to higher education to school education. That's how it builds, right? So to reduce the pressure, and that's why if you look at companies worldwide, especially companies like Google, they're not focusing on the degrees you have. If you have competency, you come, you qualify, and you're through. It really doesn't matter if you have a degree or not. So there is a shift that was not there 10 years ago, 20 years ago. It is there today. And I'm sure that there will be a shift in another 10, 20, 30 years. But like you say, it takes a village.
Mamta Savarwal, how to reduce the burden from this section of children that so much of expectations, 100 cut-off marks, 20 साल पहले तो इतना कुछ नहीं था अब ये करे तो क्या करे आप बताइए.
It's very difficult. Actually, if I talk about cutoff rate, competition, before guiding the students, there is a need for the society and for the parents to understand. Because children, whatever the parents think, the same thing gets reflected in the thoughts of the kids. Believe in me, since you have asked this question, I am kind of forced to tell you that what is happening these days. That is the 11th class admissions. The child doesn't want and isn't sitting quietly. And the parents are, you to science karega. We are saying that you see his marks, he's not been able to get through, maths nahi kar sakta. The child is quietly saying, ki, okay, I'll manage without maths. The parents are, maths ke bina life hi nahi hai. So the thing is that we are blaming kids. What has happened that why nobody asks the society? When I'm saying parents, parents form society. So parents need to be educated first. That is very important. Every child has some other inborn talent, some skill is there. It is just we being parents, educators have to find, have to tap, have to distinguish that talent. कि अगर आपका इंटरेस्ट आईटी में तो प्लीज आप आईटी में जाओ, यू आर गोइंग टू एक्सेल. If your interest is in cooking, you want to become a chef, please go ahead. If you want to be a designer or anything, maybe so and so forth, but then it is the parents should accept it, the society should accept it. That is very, very rightly said in that movie of Three Idiots. आप जो चाहते हो, love the work you do it and you will get success. झक मार के भी पीछे आएगी. But the parents need to understand why the parents are forcing कि engineering करनी है. आप देखो आपका बच्चा नहीं कर सकता. Why we are having so many accidents, so many incidents? We are pressurizing. पहले हमने अपनी मर्जी हमने अपने बच्चों के ऊपर we have imposed on them कि आपको science करो, maths करो. Now पढ़ो. The child from the day one was saying I'm not able to do it. Parents doesn't want to listen. And every day I'm dealing with such situation. And I have seen in the last so many years when we are counseling, we had to counsel parents more. And believe in me, this is a fact. In the month of July, this year, the admissions are happening late. Otherwise, normally April mein hote hain. So July mein they keep crying ki ma'am please change kar do subject. Why did you take it? Ma'am please batana nahi, lekin parents pressure gaye. So understand, the parents need to understand. Parents will understand ki yes, my child, I am okay with my kid. I don't want my kid to go with 90-95%. I want to go with my child, what he says and what his capacities. He may not be doing very well in academics, maybe with 70, 80, 90. I should be happy being a parent and being an educator. Educators, थोड़े से आपको देखते हो कि yes, कि हमारे बच्चे आए, we are happy. लेकिन parents, they are not happy. You see the girl last time also when there was a news, then she has got 97%. She was crying that she was not happy. Why? Why? Because there's a pressure from the parent side only. So we need to see, if we start doing that ways, if we are all educated parents, if being parents, if we cannot support our child, how can we expect the society to, support your child? So whatever the child is doing, whether the child is being, yes, if the child is not studying, I'm not saying that just give a open leverage to a kid, okay, padna hai, padho, nahi padna mat padho. That should not have the attitude. Attitude is you show your best. If you are doing your best, उसके बाद आपके जितने percentage आते हैं, I am standing next and besides you, and then I'm happy with whatever you have done it, because I know you have burned the midnight oil and you have been studying, and that is your capacity, and I should admit it. All 5 fingers are not same. They are, so I should accept, not that my child is a topper. That's okay. Child has not done academically well. My child must be brilliant in many other IT skills, and he will go. And every child, I have not seen. जितने भी top shots हैं, they're all dropouts. If you see the history, Facebook उठा लो, कुछ भी उठा लो, everything. So we cannot say. So if we have this feeling among our children, certainly pressure on the children will be less. They will be happy in whatever they are doing. They will not have that fear of failure. They will not have that fear and the pressure, peer pressure or society pressure, क्योंकि उनको पता है कि हमारे यहाँ पे पीछे parents as a support खड़े हैं. And I think that is what is very important. And not only parents, being the educators also, we have to be towards our child. मेरे को पता है मेरा बच्चा बहुत अच्छा है, class में does well. We are also parents. I believe he has been doing good. He will excel. 100 आ जाएंगे, 99 आ जाएंगे, आ गए 95, कोई बात नहीं. Accept it. It is not the failure of the child. It is the will say it is basically a failure from the side of the parents and the teachers and the educators. If we are not able to understand, we are not able to come down there to level, we are pressurizing. Unsaid pressure kills a lot. And that is what it is happening.
I'm glad, Mamta Savarwal, that you've raised this very important, pertinent issue of how the society is pressurizing a child, be it parents, be it peer pressure, be it even schools. I think we all have to change ourselves. If, again, I'm repeating myself, suppose that if we have to implement NEP in its true spirit, and just to inform all of you that yesterday in the inaugural session, we had seen the presence of Professor Rajat Muna. He's the director of IIT Vilai. Earlier, he used to be the head of CDAC. He talked about a very important part about the overall education. He talked about boundless joy. I think that's very important, that until unless we enjoy and we have the boundless joy, limitless joy, neither we can connect technology with joy, or neither we can move forward in the right direction. I think with these lines, I just end this session here, because we are running short of time. We have one more panel to complete. And I can see hotel people are staring at me, because I think they have some other booking also. But thank you so much, all of you. But I'm sure that deliberations made by all of you today have touched base upon the very important aspects of giving quality education to a child, with the practical approach towards how we can improve the assessment, how we can move into the right direction, and how we can reduce the burden of expectations out of a child. Thank you so much, Dr. Parveen Kukreja, Dr. Sunita Swaraj, Dr. Shalini Bajaj, Dr. Mansi Agarwal, and Mamta Sabarwal for joining us for this important session on changing pattern of assessment in a blended learning model. A huge round of applause for them. I request Mr. Rajneesh Dey, consulting editor of APAC News Network, to come on stage and hand over the souvenir to our eminent speakers. We can start from this side. We can start with Dr. Mansi Agarwal, founder and managing director of Scottish Early Years, Delhi. A huge round of applause for her, please. Dr. Sunita Swaraj, principal, the Heritage School, Delhi. Dr. Shalini Bajaj, principal, the Maurya School, Gurugram. Dr. Parveen Kukreja, academic director, Shamford Futuristic School of Agra. And to Mamta Savarwal, vice principal and head of school, Darshan Academy, Delhi. Can you have a group photo of all the speakers together, please? Rajiv.
Good afternoon, and for the next panel discussion, this is on exploring trends in online learning, upskilling, employability, emerging skills, and future of work. So very important, basically one, how online learning has become not just a matter of choice, but a matter of compulsion today, and how can it help in upskilling and improve with more emerging skills coming in quality of emerging workforce. So for this panel, we have a very eminent set of panelists, and it's my pleasure to call the panelists on stage. Dr. Tabrez Ahmed, Vice Chancellor, GD Goenka University, Sona. A round of applause for Dr. Tabrez. Next, we have Dr. Shashi Anand Sridharan, Vice President of Kalasalingam University. Welcome, Dr. Sridharan. A round of, Dr. Sridharan, he might be joining in. So next, I would like to welcome Dr. Sujata Shahi, Vice Chancellor, IILM University, Gurugram. Welcome, Dr. Sujata. I would like to welcome Dr. Shivram Khara, Vice Chancellor, Sharda University, Noida. I would like to also welcome Jasprit Singh, Head of Marketing and Public Relations, Finance Sphere. Can we have Jasprit on stage? Okay, I think a couple of panelists, Dr. Sridharan and Jasprit, will. And yeah, I can see Jasprit also. We have this panel discussion on, as I mentioned, very important correlating online learning with better employability and better quality workforce, how they are emerging. And for this, my first question, let's start with Dr. Tabrez. My first question is, we have been hearing this over the last couple of days and also recently that especially one of the problems during the virtual classrooms that were happening in the last couple of years were the lack of experiential learning, especially in labs, wherein labs you need to ultimately, if you are looking at improving the quality of workforce, actual industry situations, how can they be simulated in labs? And when the teaching was happening in an online mode, so that's a double challenge. So Dr. Tabrez, I'll start with you. Really, how can you simulate industry situations in labs for better experiential learning, that too in an online mode?
Thank you, Rajneesh, for asking a very good question. Thank the APAC for inviting me in this program. So this session is very important because it talks about critical aspects of the learning and challenges we faced during the pandemic. So there are two kinds of learning. One is the content-based learning that you can make them learn in any way, whether online, offline. There is no challenge on the performance or skill orientation or the professionalism of the students. But some of the areas we cannot shift to the online mode we learned during the pandemic. One of them is really getting the lab work or practical work. You talk about the engineering. Also talk about the legal education is a moot court. Generally, moot court is one of the very important aspect for legal education. We generally do in the physical mode. But thanks to the pandemic, people have realized and also tried to simulate in the online mode, and they're successful. So in the mooting, at least every law school tried to shift to the online mode, and they're greatly successful because it was mostly argumentation and research. So first thing is the research. Research you can do better by engaging a lot of good online journals where you can access the material throughout the world. But the question is regarding the pricing and financial kind of the viability. Every law school will not be able to really have the good material. Those who are the potentially sound, because in legal education very fast updates are happening, and we have to even cite the cases held yesterday. Because today something will be said by Supreme Court of India. It is law of the land by default. We have to follow. Same thing may happen in the engineering education, where something may be invented by somebody, maybe going to change scenario, provide better efficiency for application of any technology or knowledge. Then thanks to also the pandemic, people have virtual labs. People experimented virtual labs, and it's quite successful. It is not 100%, but quite successful in terms of that, the saving of the time and energy. Because making the lab is a very heavy investment, and also engaging students is very, very kind of the heavy task. But organizing the virtual lab and then experimenting, and also because of the simulation, I think it is greatly successful if you compare the pricing. So I think thanks to pandemic and thanks to people try to become very innovative, trying to find out the real solutions in this scenario, and also sharing the lot of resources. If virtual lab is somewhere in the foreign country, anybody can use it. So some of the, at least IT companies came forward, they have shared the resources because of their kind of the social aspects, and lot of school got benefits, university got benefit in this pandemic. Thank you.
Welcome. So Dr. Sridharan, I'll come to you next. I was moderating one panel of the with representations from IITs, IIMs, and NITs today. And one important point was that topic was on industry-academia collaboration, and the concern was that industry does not get so much involved in training the faculty or reorienting the faculty, if I may use. Otherwise, these new industry standards and things, the faculty are a little backdated. And also those changes or new things are not often incorporated in the academic curriculum also. So what is your view, what are your views on these two aspects, more faculty industry coordination, and how do you incorporate more industry oriented changes in the curriculum?
So thank you for the opportunity. So as you rightly said, there is a gap. And I think, we have been talking about this gap for years together, and we will be talking about this gap in the years to come also between industry and academia. Yes, when we compare India versus Western countries, wherein in the Western countries, how universities are an integral part of R&D for the industry. It is not the case, as we all know in India, because industries have their own R&D division, and the focus is on, because industry believes in a very quick turnaround, but whereas academia is always the one which is playing catch up. So how can we go about mitigating this, in terms, I wouldn't say slowness, but in terms of how quick academia can adapt itself is something academicians and institutions need to think about. Do we want to wait for one batch of students to pass out before considering that the syllabus, what is the value of the syllabus, and then change, because the technology which is there today will not be there 4 years from now, because industry has already moved on, and I wouldn't say wasted, we have spent our time training students in a technology which will go obsolete in 4 years. So that is the half-life of technology which we also need to look at. So with that aspect, where I foresee how institutions can engage industry is having industry, I'm sure almost every institution would have an industry advisory board, or people from industry, involved in framing the syllabus. Yes, the syllabus framing industry is involved, but the most important is when we look at a faculty member or an institution, we are teaching, are the students learning? So have industry also involved in the delivery and the assessment part. So let me give you a quick example of what we implemented this year in Kalasalingam University in Tamil Nadu, is that for every possible course, wherever possible, we called in industry experts to co-teach a course and co-assess the course. So that we don't, industry doesn't tell, yes, this is syllabus, teach this, then go back and then say you have not taught them properly. So we asked industry, be a partner, take on the burden, let us deliver the course together, let us assess the students together, so that the fixes can be made then and there. So that ultimately we want our students to benefit, and when the graduates come out, industry benefits by having trained students, and so that they can be deployed from day one also. So let us be involved in the process. And to be honest, not many industries came forward because this is at an additional cost to them. So with this, but I foresee going forward more and more, because when we are able to convince them that it will help them in the long run, more and more industries would come forward. So with this partnership, not only in the framing of the syllabus, but along with delivery and assessment, would definitely help in having a very
a strong industry academia collaboration, which would then lead to the production of strong graduates from the campus and also the same trained graduates for the industry as well. Thank you.
Thank you. So two things I liked. One, that half-life of the curriculum that you mentioned, very interesting point. And the second was, initially I was very encouraged when you mentioned you got industry to come as for co-teaching, but then you said the response was not as expected. So that's where the challenge lies. And I'll come to you, Dr. Sujata, now. From both the sides, how do you, from an institution side, involve more the industry? And what do you expect from the industry in terms of helping reorient the faculty so that the students get updated on industry knowledge?
Thank you. And thank you, APAC, for organizing this conference on such a special day. Today is World Skill Day. And we are talking about reskilling, upskilling, and employability. Everybody knows the current situation in India, that we have our students, 30% students are working on the job which are not available, redundant. But still we have no choice, we are replacing them. But what you said, industry, academia, marrying these two separate entity is important. Not only one way, academia, like our fellow colleague, he said, like we can give certain courses to corporate people who can teach, even teach, co-teach or assess. This is one way to involve industry. Our faculty members, they are not trained, they are not aware about futuristic development in organization. This is the big gap. And usually what happens in Western universities, companies are opening the lab within the premises of university. So student and corporate people or faculty jointly, they can work on product development or any kind of innovation. So student is also aware, faculty is also upskilled about the product. But my suggestion is, we can have the way we are teaching with case study. So many things are happening in organization, in corporate world. They can come up with certain cases which can be integrated with our course. Our faculty members can go there, a job shadow kind of thing. Even one day, a faculty is shadowing one leader in organization. He or she will get to know, apart from technical knowledge, what kind of interpersonal skills, leadership, these are required. This is one job shadow I can suggest. Another is give chance to us as being an academia to go and stay in that organization for a week, for 15 days. We are willing to allow our faculty members to go and upskill themselves. Reskilling is different, moving, but upskill themselves. And we are actually not aware, they are not coming forward what they are going to do and develop certain products which can be taught to our student right now. This is the challenge we are facing.
Thanks. So till now we have discussed basically the topic of the discussion. There are two underlying themes around it. We have discussed the upskilling and the reskilling and making the workforce more industry-oriented, employable. The other part was the online part. And the online part, the challenge there is, and I'll come to Dr. Shibram Khara on this, with Indian condition, a connectivity infrastructure is not uniform across the country. And especially when last 2 years we're talking about students, many students, they might have gone anywhere to their home states or hometowns. And the uniformity of connectivity infrastructure was not there. Second is, again, looking at the socio-economic condition of the students, the costs and the economics involved are also difficult maybe for everyone. So keeping all these things in mind, while you have to maintain what we have discussed till far, this trying to bring the academia institution at par with the industry, but at the same time, maintaining the infrastructural and financial challenges. So how would you be managing that, Dr. Shivram Khara?
Very good question. Point. Say here two scenarios are there. One is during pandemic, what we have faced, because that time we were mandated, because there is no option but to adopt the online system to keep on alive our education system, teaching learning process and evaluations at the basic level. And other point is that as per NEP, National Education Policy, the accessibility to the education, and also in last session, I have heard about the digital university. Not last session, some other session, the government is proposing today during the NIRF result declarations that Honorable Minister, digital university they're talking about. So your factor is that the gross enrollment ratio, the age group from 1 to 5 or 6, today we have. So after 15 to 20 years, just let us have the estimate that number of scholars or students will be there in the higher education. So it will simply double. So if it is now around 4 crore, so it will be minimum 8 crore. If you want to achieve the 50% of the gross enrollment ratio. So now come to the accessibility and affordability at the grassroots level. So you have to, first of all, accessibility to the educations at all levels, not only the higher education level, because higher education level access this gross enrollment ratio will be fulfilled if primary, nursery, primary, higher secondary educations, that level is rectified so that they are coming. So you have we have options is that besides this regular education system, we must adopt the online education. So if you adopt the online educations, then those citizens or the students, those who are SEDG, the socially economically disadvantaged groups we are talking about, they physically come to the education's primary. Of course, it will be approachable distance, but higher education, it will be long distance sometimes because those infrastructures are not available in and around, especially in the remote places. So in that case, if I keep aside this pandemic factor away temporarily, now talk about the building of the India. So now you, what burden will be there and plan or strategic development will be there in the infrastructure level, specifically the bandwidth. So not only the bandwidth, as rightly you have told that if Wi-Fi facility cannot be provided in the remote area, so government has to come out with different strategy where in some office or beyond working hours, some schools where Wi-Fi can be provided to attend the classes. But that will not serve the purpose wholeheartedly for 100%. But there will be some students who will be in the remote area, and for them bandwidth will be very costly. So whether government will come out with the policy to facilitate those students, have subsidized cost that yes, this much bandwidth will be available so that they can attend the classes online and get the degree, because now the kind of flexibility with the induction of NEP has been given, the degree can be done in fragmented way also. So first year, second year, and third year, and final year, like that. Then another cost is involved, your device cost. So if two childs are there children are there in a family, so 2 devices minimum, and then mobile device and laptop. So that cost is involved, because in mobile you cannot do everything. Preparing the notes and other study purpose, you need certain desktop or laptop type of things. And then other factor is coming in those type of economically backward or poor sections of the people, disadvantaged people, the ambience at the home, because 2 children cannot attend the class in the same room. So those are the challenges. I think government will certainly come out with will address this, that if digital university or online education will be given to all eligible universities so that they can launch the online programs and these students can do. But again, this bandwidth and the devices and the ambience of the and the infrastructures at the family level, those are the factors still will be there. And then evaluations, of course, if online evaluations is to be done, and that system we have faced during pandemic. That was the major constraint. And of course, the primary schools or high schools and other infrastructures will be there where for evaluation purpose, examination purpose, government can come out with some strategy to address these issues. So these are all ground level issues to be addressed at the policy level. And then this in the access level, if you are successful, and then in the higher education, this the target of 50% gross enrolling ratio will be feasible. So this is the scenario we can address this.
Thank you. Jasprit, I'll put the same question to you from an industry perspective. Infrastructure, connectivity, not uniform across the country, costs often prohibitive for many. What's the solution from an industry perspective? Dr. Khara talked about some government subsidies. So that has to come at a policy level. How can the industry help in sort of economizing some of these solutions?
Correct. So I think, first of all, I totally agree with what Professor Khara said, because to make an impact at a scale that we're talking about, government intervention in terms of enabling mobile reach, enabling Wi-Fi reach, enabling internet reach to the last mile of the Indian citizen has to be there. In terms, there is one angle I think the panelists probably did not cover, is that the aspirations, and I think they are more suited than I am, the aspirations of that India versus the aspirations of India in a tier 1, tier 2 city could be completely different. My wife happens to be working with an NGO in the site space, and she visits islands where the houses are still mud made, right? If you're talking about that India probably education is still a far-fetched dream. Leave aside online education. Education itself is a far-fetched dream. But if you come, let's say, for the sake of discussion, if you come to tier 2, tier 3 cities, in fact, tier 3 also. Tier 3 also has decent amount of connectivity in terms of 2G and 3G. That's one aspect of it. The second aspect that you asked me was, how can industry help? And I think a lot of industry has been doing this, that they have been reaching out, and because the manpower, specifically areas where manpower is required in abundance, for example TCS and other such industries where every year they kind of want to hire 1,000 students and 500 students at a stretch, they probably go to the education institutes and say, hey, listen, train those people for us in a way that we want, and we will assist you in teaching them in an online mode. So let's say I'm TCS and I want, let's say, 1,000 students, and it's from the same pool of students that is available. I would rather go out and say, listen, you have the students, I know you're facing difficulties, I will sponsor mobile tablets and all those things, but you promised me that this children will be taught in a method so that my education to industry time decreases drastically. So I think that's one area where industry can help in. Otherwise, I think in terms of the education till tier 2, till 3 city, I believe that the mobile penetration and data penetration is enough. One last point I wanted to add was that, and I have said this in a lot of forums, that virtual reality is something that needs to be seriously explored by the industry at this point in time. Professors mentioned that in the legal space there has to be to and fro in terms of a case. It is, I think, in the education space, time has come that institutes look out at virtual realities and artificial reality as a serious medium of education. Imagine Professor Khara sitting here and there are 10,000 universities seeing him live, not just as a 2D screen, but as a 3D model of Professor Khara himself. that is something that has to be the next mode of education. And once that comes into place, I think the infrastructure itself will follow, and the government itself will do that. So that's my take on what you just said.
Thank you. Now I'll come starting with Dr. Tabrez, one round with all the panelists, and very briefly, 1 minute to each of you. We talked about the challenges, some of the issues, but most important is action. So going forward, and we are talking, we would have to live with some amount of online learning, whatever we call it, hybrid, blended, high flex, we discussed it yesterday. So whatever, there will be a significant online component to it. And we need workforce skilled to tomorrow's industry orientation. So in light of both this and all our infrastructural challenges, however we wish, will not go away tomorrow. So keeping these three scenarios in mind, what should be the immediate action? Starting with you, Dr. Tabrez, 1 minute you have.
I think we have to first try to filter out what can be delivered in the online, what can be offline, because blending is now it will continue and further grow. As UC has said that we can deliver 40% content online. But the question is that what can be delivered online, what can be delivered offline, because we have to also see the student engagement and experience. So that we are hearing the thoughts from Dr. Khar and also from Jaspreet and others that there are a lot of cost issues, there are a lot of kind of the software issues, there are a lot of investments are required from government and all. So once we are very clear that what can be delivered online, my idea is that what are the unproductive work must be going to the online mode. For example, a lot of examination work where faculty is engaged fully in the classroom just to sit for 3 hours, just to see about the kind of the examination going on. You're not giving anything back. So examination can be, barring few, it can be delivered to the online mode because we have the proctoring softwares are coming. We can also, students will be coming to the campus just for examination. See the time they're wasting in traveling and all the kind of pain they're taking. That time can be utilized for raising their quality and standards. They can do better, perform better in the examination. They can learn better. And also faculty can save time. Those are wasting in the exam organization. They can also do some research, publish some papers. So once you do proper kind of the analysis, we have to filter out that what are the activities can be given online, what can be offline. And also if you go to the further in the content, some content I just mentioned in my earlier speech that some can be delivered online because it is very easy. But some of the finer content where a lot of discussion, debates are required, innovations are required, creativity is required, where those are problem solving skills, where we have to kind of find out the solution. This should be engaged, for example, legal education, management education. Lot of areas there where a lot of debates are required because they have to raise the standard. They have to develop the quality of the leadership, of the analysis and all. Those areas must be, can be delivered in the offline mode where student engagement experience are required because a lot of peer learning will be happening in the physical mode that we are missing in the online mode. Because if you see that people who are fed up by the online, they sometimes feel bored. They want to do and do social networking and coordination and all. So that could be component that filtering out and also dividing that what are the areas, what are the components can be delivered online, offline mode, where a lot of analysis required by the experts. Faculty should sit together and decide. If you can filter out properly, kind of deliver in a very professional way, it will be a great thing for us. Unless we are just bothered in the pandemic, we are just bound to do online. There's no option. But now we have realized, we have seen the experience, we can filter out and can have better output and better engagement. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Dr. Sridharan.
To add on to my colleagues, that I would basically like to say 2 points over here. First and foremost is, we as a student who spends 30 to 40 hours inside an institution, how many hours is the student spending only listening to the faculty? That can be completely moved online. Whereas the time which the student spends in terms of laboratory work, project work, peer work, or any hands-on activity, that is the time which we should focus on. And I think the pandemic has really taught us that, like, the importance of face-to-face interaction, the importance of human interaction, and how precious that is, and how we missed that over the last 2 years is something which we really need to think upon and see. In every course, I'm sure every course has a lecture component, a tutorial component, a practical component, and multiple components depending upon the activities. So which can be done online, which can be done face to face, that is something, like, which academia also needs to ponder and kind of revitalize, and I would say reinvent itself. That's something, like, which cannot happen overnight, but start at a course level, and then maybe at, like, at the overall at the institution level, we can look into that. So that's the first point I wanted to mention. Second thing where I'd like to say, like, in terms of the education and online education, how to make the students industry ready. As of now, unfortunately, the current scenario in most academic institutions is that our training for the industry is done in bits and pieces, and that too by a third-party solution. It is not integrated into the day-to-day activities of the student and institution as a whole. If we are able to change that, if you, like, for example, if you look at institutions abroad, there is no training and placement center at all. There is no training and placement office, like, in most cases. There's only an office of career services wherein students can go and get information and then, like, look out and apply for jobs on their own. And students are doing really well over there. So how, instead of having bits and pieces, kind of have the assessments, activities included in such a way that they prepare the students to be job ready and to be industry ready, is also something academic institutions need to think and evolve going forward with the help of industry also. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Dr. Sujata.
So I completely agree with Professor Ahmed and fellow colleague. But I have one point. Pandemic has taught us how to deal with challenges all of a sudden and innovate ourselves. So my focus, they have given focus on assessment and few other part. My focus is completely on pedagogy and the content, which we deliver in either in physical classroom or online classroom. We have to change that. We have to upskill our faculty members, reskill, integrated with technology, to use technology to teach online and plus offline. Why I'm saying this? Because synchronous and asynchronous, this one is the reality for our content development. We have gamification, we have simulation, what he talked about, virtual reality. These are certain ways, and we found during pandemic the way we created engagement for our students with breakout rooms. So this is not like the way we have to change and adapt and accept. That is the mindset and attitude of faculty members and institutions as well. So this is my first thing. Use all virtual component in your teaching. Gamification is such a nice way to engage students. So many simulations are available to simulate in online mode. Second part, very short, I just want to say and request to all faculty members or academician that we have to give focus on for employability, the core learning cycle. Observation is required through industry academia partnership. They can go and observe. Then abstract is important. Then they can conceptualize, and then with the help of faculty and academician, they can experiment. So this one is the cycle. If students are using properly, they will not have any challenge related to employability. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Khara.
So I will just present the scenario of my university, the practical scenario. Say medical and dental, nursing, we could not stop even during the peak of the pandemic. Because it was mandated also, mandate was there that because medical educations cannot be run online. No such online courses, contents also such available for medical, but now they are thinking. So similarly, dental, medical, along with that nursing. And then we have a second largest school, the Allied Health Science. So these 4 schools, during pandemic for a single day, it was not stopped. The program actually was running. Now come to the virtual scenario. Computer science, there was not much problem because cloud-based server was there, softwares are installed, so, and there you have monitoring system also in the server-based, and then in the console through user login, they will be doing coding and other things. Except few hand-holding and practical debugging, all those things. But the other side, mechanical, electronics, civil engineering, and then biotech, architecture, agriculture, where students has to go to the field, and we have a lot of agriculture plantation laboratories. We face and design as well as other such activity-based wherever. How pharmacy. So how do we run these courses, these programs online? We faced a lot of problems on that, although we tried to give certain videos and emulate certain things, and some of the laboratories are postponed that when university will reopen, then we'll conduct those experiments. So this is the ground experience with us while we are running the university. But however, as Ahmed has Sridhar has rightly told that it depends the content, the theory, where you only your hypothesis, your theory, your understanding, and few of the story involved. So there you can have, whether you do online or offline, it is same. Only thing is that in the online, student physically will be present, so some additive benefit is there because of physical interaction. So other development also will happen. Otherwise, as far as content delivery is concerned, as Madam was rightly told, no problem. But where experiential learning, where physical involvement is required, so there is a concern, great concern. So Professor Ahmed has rightfully told that we appropriately have to choose the content which can be given online and which cannot be given online. I'll just give one example that, say, we have kitchen and lot of utensils are there. So if one utensil is not there, using other utensils, we can solve the problem of making one omelette if my frying pan is not there. But that does not mean that that will be the habitual and knowledge we can do that, because there is a concern. So we need to understand. We can do that provided that we do some innovation there. So that innovation then depends on the faculty capability and with the experience. So if without innovation, straightforward, if we adopt this online for certain experiential learning, so that probably will be the wrong applications. So we need to do it very carefully. But other domain, I have not spoken so far, that industry, just I will take a minute. Say we university have industry collaborations. Specifically in my university, each kind of collaboration is there. We have industry collaborated program, but that is for only computer science and business. We have industry supported research lab. We have industry collaboration for very high-end research with Pratishta Group for fermentation and microbial testing and all, and many more other. But my objective is that, our objective should be that in gross level at the university, what industry connect culture we can build. So basic platform where we need to establish is that where an ecosystem is to be built up, that all the faculty members and student at the very bottom level, let them take up one industry problem as a part of their project and have the industry-based problem solving learning. When we enter in there, that should happen in the gross level. And then you have a lot of achievements because you are connected, then depending on the internship, placement, industry, expertise involvement, research, collaboration, all things which usually has to happen. But things are happening where to showcase, we have a lot of examples, but gross level industry has to do some transformation and make the ecosystem that all the programs, all the faculty members are connected with the industry, and this basic level is met. So this is required.
Thanks. That's very interesting and innovative suggestion. Jaspreet, the last word is with you.
I think everything that has to be said on this topic has already been said. I'd like to add one last point to it, and which is in continuation to what I said last time, and which is in addition to what Dr. Tabrez said. While we look at what can be delivered online and what can be delivered physically, we should go one step beyond and seriously think as to what can be delivered online with better performances. So rather than looking at courses saying that this is a course, we divide it into online and physical, we should rather look at a question saying, out of this, what is it that can be better delivered online? In terms, if, for example, experiential learning somebody talked about, can the experiential learning be better if it is supported with technology and delivered online rather than physically, or physically online, which means that you are present in terms of the students, but you're delivering it online. I think that's something that is an area where, we have not spoken about, and that's something I genuinely feel the institute should talk about. And that's the only point I think I have to add on top of that.
Thanks. With that, I would like to invite Gopi Krishna Arora to hand over a memento to our panelists. So can we have Dr. Tabrez Ahmed? Dr. Karan. Just keep seeing. Can I request the panelist? So with that, we come to the end of the two-day APAC 4th Global Education and Skills Conclave. Thanks to all the participants for making it such an interactive couple of days. Thank you.